Feminists are protesting against the wave of anti-feminism that swept South Korea.
Here's a summary of the article.
It's a response to an anti-feminist wave that has swept across South Korea, creating a tense gender war where discourse around women's rights is taboo and men claim they are now the victims of gender discrimination. Policies meant to increase economic opportunity for women and close the gender pay gap have fueled young men's resentment toward women. South Korean women largely must choose between career and family, with The Economist's Glass Ceiling Index ranking it the worst country in the OECD for working women in 2022. When even one's hairstyle can become a reason for verbal abuse and accusations of man-hating, many young women in South Korea are fearful of speaking up about women's rights. Femi, short for feminist, has become a derogatory label for any person who speaks up about gender discrimination and women's empowerment in South Korea. This type of rhetoric is censoring women's voices, especially when they try to support gender issues, said Jinsuk Kim, a professor at Emory University who studies online misogyny and feminism. In the corporate world, women only hold about 21% of managerial positions and only 5% of executive positions in South Korean companies.
This post received a score of 5,100, with an upvote ratio of 92%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
It wasn't that long ago that South Korea was a fascist dictatorship. You can really see it in a lot of the problems that linger.
I remember the South Korean military used to emphasize a lot more on loyalty to the Korean race until 2011 after backlash from liberal South Koreans.
Greater than I remember the South Korean military used to emphasize a lot more on loyalty to the Korean race until 2011 after backlash from liberal South Koreans. This has always been an emphasis in Korean culture, else we would have been assimilated into the Japanese or the Chinese over the course of our 4,000-year history. Koreans and Japanese have been distinct ethnic identities for a really long time. While Korean ethnic identity and solidarity may seem weird in the modern Western mindset, it was indispensable when we were colonized by the Japanese and forced to try and assimilate into Japanese ethnicity.
Greater than the knowledge of ourselves as a distinct people that deserve to rule the land our ancestors have ruled for 1,000 of years was essential for the independence movement. I'd love to see a reputable comparison for Africa. Those tribes and countries are undoubtedly even older, but modernized countries are coming in with really powerful tools for cultural change, whether that is modern smartphones or simpler access to fresh water. For everything humans know about how countries defend their own culture, there's also a decidedly seedy bunch of countries that are ripe to abuse that knowledge, especially in the modern era where information sharing is so fast and rapid that fake news takes hold very quickly.
Not necessarily. I'm Zimbabwean, but my ethnic group only started in its current state about 1,000 years ago. Before that we were part of the bigger Bantu migratory group from Cameroon and Nigeria.
Most young men here believe feminism is not for them, or at least willing to sacrifice them to advance its goal. More recent example would be opposition to the policy that gave college credit to those after service, or abolishment of old custom that allow men to achieve minimum employed year for rank advancement quicker than women, by counting mandatory service year when calculating it. Since most of men had to serve whether they want or not, the talk about its compensation inevitably becomes gender issue. Of course, most feminist groups support abolishing it, but many of them also support tweaking compensation as well, so it's hard for young men to see them in a good light, given that almost everyone expects that conscription system will persist for at least decades.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.